Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Health Hunt podcast. Today I have the gorgeous fellow Pisces gal, Alysh Doyle. Say hello, Alysh.
Hi, Orla. Thanks a million for having me on your podcast. So
No
good to be
problem.
here.
I'm so excited for today. I've spoken about human design quite a good bit on the podcast, and I've had people asking about it. So today I got the expert. We had a lot of chats about human design, so I couldn't wait to pick your brain. Myself and Alysh met in Bali. Alysh is a woman of many talents. She is a dancing teacher, she is a yoga teacher, she is a retreat hostess, she is a spiritual queen, she is so many different things. And you also started off in the science industry, like myself. I remember
Yeah.
when I first found that out, I was like, no way.
Yeah,
When
it's
did you
mad
when did you
because
make the
I didn't know that
transition?
you had either. I didn't know anybody else that had the same kind of background as us, so similar. Like
Hmm.
that we both studied science. What did you do, biomedical or normal science?
Biotechnology. Yeah, so very similar.
Biotechnology, that's right. I remember you saying that. Yeah. And then we just kind of moved into pharmaceuticals because, well, I know I certainly just kind of fell into it because I didn't really know what else to do. And I had this degree that allowed me to go and work for this company that was going to pay me all this money, me so young. So I thought that was a great opportunity. And
Yeah.
it was, in so many ways, it really was a great opportunity because I got to grow so much and learn and everything. But then I reached a point where it just was not fulfilling anymore. And I can't, I'm grateful in a way, but if something is wrong for me, inside me, it's just so uncomfortable that I cannot
Mm.
stick it for too much longer. And that's the same with relationships with people, with behaviors I'm observing in myself or others. I just eventually it'll just become so overpowering that I have to get out. I have to figure
Mm.
out a way to get out, which is a gift in itself because it means my body is trying to keep me in on my path or in alignment with myself. So
Yeah.
that is good because you don't want to get too complacent and then years later wake up and be like, oh no, what am I doing? So I was
Yeah.
glad that that happened. Yeah.
And you're so in tune with
Yeah.
yourself as well. I think it's so easy for us to be like, oh, well, logically it makes sense to stay with the money and stick in this good job and do what society thinks that you should do when,
Mm.
your gut, your intuition told you that that's not for you. And
Mm.
we can suppress that as much as we want, or we can tune into what our body's telling us and follow the magic. And we were just chatting a little bit about Ailish so we met in Bali and you went back to Ireland then, and now
Mm.
you've relocated within Ireland again down to Clare. And
Yeah.
Ailish was just filling me in on the magic that she's experienced so far. Ailish is one of the most like positive people that I've met in terms of like trust
Oh.
in spirituality and the universe. You're just like, no, everything's just gonna be how it is. I remember one day that we were trying to meet up for coffee, and she was like, yeah, look, if it aligns, it aligns. And I was like, are we meeting or what?
Yeah. You're like, no, but we have to make a plan. And I was like, yeah, okay, okay.
The Pisces flow is too much.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so funny.
And I
um
do, I really do like it actually is a balance. You're so like right with what you said that day, Orla, which is a great example. It's a funny example, but like you do need the balance between the masculine and the feminine. And sometimes I'll lean too much into one or the other. Sometimes I'm quite masculine as well. And it's
mm,
like, no, I have to do this, and this. It's usually when I'm in like a panicked state. That's when I'm really dipping into my masculine because I want that security. But then sometimes I'm like, if it aligns, it'll happen. But like, you do need to like plan the time and day. Otherwise, I don't know how we're going to bump into each other, So you
exactly,
need both.
exactly. Needs to go in the
Yeah.
calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Was the dancing then the first I suppose step out of the pharmaceutical industry for you, or what was the first step that you took?
It was dance to heal. So while I was in pharma, I think it was COVID. Yeah, it would have been COVID. So we were like working from home, but I was working shift work at that time. So I was sometimes working from home, but most of the time still going in. and working shift on top of that. And you know me, Orla, like it's one of the first things I say when I introduce myself to everyone. I need my sleep, like, and I need to be in bed early. I have serious boundaries around that. Like, I know how to function, and it is not by doing night shift in a pharmaceutical company. Let me tell you that, right? So that helped in making it feel so uncomfortable to be there. And rather than just change departments, I did change department, but I knew I was already on the way out. But yeah, so during that stage, I was part of like a women's group that was like maybe 20 girls, and there was a different theme each week where you would get the opportunity to learn more about yourself. And one week was about manifestation, and other weeks were about what you're not happy with. And overall, what I came to the conclusion of was I wasn't happy in my job. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was willing to try and discover what that was. And by setting that intention that was so open, and back then I wouldn't have been spiritual at all. I didn't know anything about it. But I was using therapy as my in, but I was still using my spirit, but I just didn't know I was by setting intention. So I set the intention to find what was right for me. And like one of the tasks was, well, what are you good at? Don't think about how you can make money. Just what is it that you are good at and that you enjoy? And I couldn't really think of many things. There actually wasn't a big long list. It was literally dancing. That was it. That was all I could think of that I'm good at, that I don't have to work at, that I know would be easy to do every day. But that wasn't enough. I was like, I'm not going to make money from dancing. Like, I've never been trained. I've spent my whole life dancing. I've been in different schools, but I've never, been trained as a professional dancer. So I wasn't going to be getting up on stage and making money that way. So yeah, I just let that go for a while. And then eventually one night, just before I was falling asleep, and I now know it was because I was just entering into the subconscious, it came to me. And I was like, because I knew I wanted to help people as well. But again, I didn't know how to bring the two together because I didn't understand somatic therapy. None of that was in my awareness at that time. But just as I was falling asleep, it was like, bam, I'm going to do some sort of dance that helps people. And I didn't know how to do it, but I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And it was just like such an all body knowing, like, and now I can recognize that that's when my intuition is super strong. I've had a few more hits like that since then. And I actually had hits before then, but that was when my awareness was starting. So I can see now on reflection that was like this huge intuitive pang. And sometimes they're more subtle, but in that moment, because it was such a significant change, it probably needed more of a force so that I pay attention. Plus I was falling asleep, so I didn't want to fall asleep on the idea. But that's basically where I came from. And then I just started working towards figuring out how to do it. And I knew that myself, when I'm very emotional, it was helping me to punch things, to batter a pillow, when I was angry, or like if I was crying, like I would usually just cry. But then I was like, is there a way that you could actually express that through movement? And then slowly but surely, Dance to Heal came about, where it was very much intentional movement to allow yourself to express your emotions in a different way. And the more, like, it's just so funny, Orla, because I created it, I started it, and then I started to learn that what I was doing was already very much a therapy that existed, that other people had studied, but I was actually already doing it through my intuition, which is crazy. And the more I learn now, I know so much now, but I'm like, how did I know that back then? And that's how intuition can show up. It's crazy.
I
Insane.
love that. I love that. So that's so much of my coaching. So much of my coaching has been like I've connected so many dots along the way that has led me to where I am. Like I've been like, okay, I want to learn about this. There's something with this aspect, whether it's the hormone connection with stress, whether it's the gut brain connection, whatever it is. And it's like it's always led me to the next step. And then I train and do the official course afterwards. And it's like, I knew all this. How the fuck did I know all this?
Yeah,
And
so
yeah,
cool.
it's amazing. Like and when we begin to trust that intuition more and hone into it a little bit more, you just experience so much magic in your life. Like, and you could have said, nah, there's no point in doing the dancing, who's going to take me seriously? That's not going to take me money, blah, blah, blah. And instead you're like, well, no, let me just follow what's lighting me up now for a minute and just see where it takes me, instead of putting the pressure on yourself. You need to have your life figured out and you're this age and you should be doing this and da da da. It's like, let
Mm,
me just follow this for a minute. Can you like share a little bit about, because I like dance has been incredibly healing for me over the past like year and a half, obviously. So I've shared my own experience on the podcast with trauma and feeling like really disconnected from my own body. And the
mm,
thoughts of dancing gave me the ick. It cringed me out. It was like something I couldn't do. I self-objectified, I criticized myself. And I was like, all these things of why I couldn't do it and I'm not good and I'm this, that, and the other. But being
mm,
able to tap into that embodiment piece and let my body move the way, and like your body's own intelligence almost, like it's been so incredibly healing, and it has really helped me push past the ego and push past the mind that tells me I'm not, insert whatever negative self-talk here. Can you
mm.
share a little bit more about like what that looks like in a dance class, or how people can tap into that somatically as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like, Orla, I think it's such a good point. People like the word dance in itself, I think, is a trigger for so many people. They're like, there's no chance unless you've got like a lot of alcohol in your system, you wouldn't even ever consider it. Like, I don't know if that's just an Irish thing. I do think there's other cultures that are like can access that easier, that maybe there wouldn't be as
Yeah.
much shame or like embarrassment associated with it. And it must come from childhood where you're laughed at or you're told you can't dance. There's loads of different experiences. Like I know I would have cringed a lot as well dancing, even though like I would be considered as a pretty good dancer, but I'd still cringe because it's such expression and it's non-verbal expression. So it is actually very vulnerable. Like
Mm.
you, especially if it's your own moves, if you're making up the moves, you're basically telling a story, and you might not realize it, but it's your subconscious's way of expressing itself. So you're telling a story, and even if it's like I'm really shy and this is the only move that I'm doing, that's still expressing, and that is very vulnerable. And people are, whether they're consciously aware or unconsciously aware, they're aware, and it makes them feel very uncomfortable. But when you push past that, and it does take a push, and I like as Irish people, if most of the listeners or are Irish, I feel like there is going to be that push for most Irish people. I don't know what it is, but there is that push, right?
Mm.
And once you push past it and you lean into it, maybe it's different for everybody. For me, it's usually about 3 songs, and then I've kind of gotten over the barrier. I'm like, okay, I'm not dying. I'll keep going. You can keep, and because I know that it's for my greater good, and I can lean into other things. But once you push past it, so if that means going to a few classes or dancing with people you trust, or finding a way that you can create a little bit more safety for yourself in that, once you push past it, what is happening is you're giving yourself the freedom of expression from your body. So
Mm.
parts of your body are being like given vitality, given freedom, given space, and like without you even having to experience the memory or the emotional turmoil of whatever your trauma was. Your body can actually just naturally move it out. Now sometimes that will turn into quite an emotional experience depending on how deep you're going, but if you stick with it, you'll move through it really quickly. When you bring the body into the equation, it knows. It's so intelligent and it's so ancient as well, even though like I'm 32, so my body is only technically 32, but its intelligence runs for thousands of years, like I don't know how many, and so it will actually be able to do so much of the work for you, and you don't need to worry about it too much. We don't need to actually, what I struggle with is I'm very much of the mind and like theoretically and figuring out all of the information. And later on, we'll probably get into it, but that's very much in my human design. But when I can actually let go and allow my body to do the work, it just knows what to do. It'll take me
Mm.
there.
I love that. I love that. That's such an important point, is that we're always thinking, we're always trying to think ourselves out of stress, think ourselves out of our
Mm,
problems, think about the best thing to do, think about the best dance move to do, think about how we look. Like, even if it's like that judgment that I would have had would have been like, who does she think she is? Like,
mm.
how dare I like stand in my power, try something new, try be sexy, try like what? Like, this was the inner dialogue.
Mm,
And I love what you
yeah,
said about freedom and safety. It doesn't even become about that anymore. It doesn't even become about who you're trying to look like. It's about who you're being, allowing your body like to shift from controlling your body and diminishing your body and devaluing your body and
mm,
disrespecting your body, to freedom of expression and feeling safe in your body. It's so
yeah.
fucking powerful. Like, it's actually, yeah, it's quite beautiful. And yeah, for anyone listening, like, I feel like recently has been, I've started to get confident in dancing and I'm putting up videos and I don't actually care anymore. I used to be like, oh, I got this move wrong, or I was kind of laughing this off. And now I'm like, I'm not even going to dancing to look good anymore. I'm not putting up these videos to look good anymore. I'm actually just doing it because I had so much fucking fun and I felt safe enough in my body to get up there and do that in front of people in heels. And like, that for me is incredibly, incredibly healing, coming from the place that I was in. And for anyone listening, that might be like that for you. Um, of course, it's a
Mm,
journey in itself. It might be incredibly triggering at the start. It might be, you might have that negative self-talk. Anything outside of your comfort zone is going to have your nervous system feeling a little bit, on edge, in your fight or flight. And
mm,
throughout the class, I like how you said about the 3 songs. For you, you can kind of find yourself with each song, with each dance, you're starting to drop back into it a little bit more. It does pass that discomfort. And the
mhm.
more you do it, even if you just start practicing in your bedroom, the more that you do it is the more that you can kind of build up this body of evidence, this proof that you can do this. You can let your body push past the uncomfortableness, the cringe, the embarrassment, all of the above. And yeah, I just think it's so special. Even just like playing some music in your room, start with that and see how you get on.
Yeah, completely. And like I think the thing is people don't realize how powerful it actually is because it's just seen as being dancing. But it's so much more. When like you've experienced a shift in your way of being from worrying about what people would think that maybe that you needed to dim your light so therefore you can't dance. And that is a huge thing that especially a lot of women would experience. You were able to shift that into I'm doing this because it gives me joy. It makes me feel like I'm having fun. I'm following my heart. And that is so inspiring. Like to live life like that. And then once you do that with dancing, you can spread that into other parts of your life. And then like living life through the heart, I feel like is the purpose of all of us to try and figure out how to live life through our heart and not through our heads or through conditioning or whatever. It's through our heart. So you've actually managed to do that. That's huge by learning that. And then if you can spread that into the rest of your life, that's why I'm just like, there's actually so many layers to everything. But when you're just talking about dance, because I can't open up a can of worms, but when it's just dance, what it actually can give to you and allow you to be, it basically just brings you back to your real true essence. And that's why it's so important. You're not just dancing in your room. It's not just exercise. You're actually on a journey of self-discovery through body movement. And it
Mm.
doesn't have to look good. It really doesn't. Like, I'm like, I would consider myself as a good dancer. So give me a set of moves and I can do them very well and they'd look great. But if you see me out in a static dance class, that does not look good. It really
Well,
doesn't.
we
But
had
that's me
Alex
being
on the
true to
podcast.
myself.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
Alex on the podcast and we were talking about the ecstatic dance in Bali and how if you go to something like that, you could literally like retreat quite quickly because everyone's like animals prowling on the floor and everything.
I loved it. I went to one, I think my first one I was with Alex and I had tears like coming down my face because I had been trying so hard to like bring dance into Ireland and I'd met so much resistance that when I landed in Bali and other people were like way more ready than me, I was so moved. So I just stood there
Oh,
crying for a few minutes before I started dancing.
oh.
It take your breath away, people being able to express so freely.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It
Yeah,
really, really is.
yeah.
But yeah, on expression, on like your energy and human
Mm.
design, there's just for anyone listening, there's so much that we could talk about with human design. Like we could do a podcast series on human design. There's so much to
Oh
learn.
my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ailish has done some courses and has done some readings for people in the past. You don't do them as often, don't you not anymore?
Not really. I don't tend to spend my whole time doing them because, as you said, you could literally, like, human design, it takes years and years and years and years to master. And then what I realized was I don't even know if there's any mastering in it. It's like a human being's lifetime.
Mm,
It's a whole lifetime of a journey in itself to discover. And I have so many other passions, so I only dabble in it from time to time. Sometimes, like if I have a friend who wants a reading, of course I'll do it then.
yeah,
And sometimes I'll have a little bit more spare time, so I might do it, but I just don't do as many anymore
yeah,
because I've so
yeah.
many other things.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's perfect. But it was so validating for me when I read about my chart for the first time because I was the same as you. I have so many different passions. I've got my toe in so many different areas of my business. Like I do Reiki, I do nutrition coaching, I do trauma coaching now. I do want to do retreats and meditations, and who's to say that's where I'm gonna stop? I haven't a clue. And there's so much online with business owners and coaching about like pick a niche, pick one thing that you stick to. Like even within my nutrition coaching, there's relationship with food, disordered eating, body image, then there's hormones, then there's gut health. Like I don't have one specific niche. And I felt that I was like being forced to pick one for a while, and it just really didn't align with me. And it really wasn't until that I learned about human design. I was like, oh, because I don't have to. I'm not meant to. I don't have to go with what everyone else is doing. I have to follow what lights me up, and being able to understand that I don't have to work the way that everyone else does based on my human design, based on how my energy works. And for me, that
Hmm.
was life changing. And now I flow so much better with my work. I dip in and out of things based on what's lighting me up. For anyone else, that's like not an efficient way to run a business. You're not seeing things through to completion. Like I fully believe that things are meant to happen when they're meant to happen in my business. And the creativity, like right now, my sacral energy is on point. Something has shifted in me, and my energy, like the creativity, is just constantly flowing. And it's not
Wow.
always there, and I can beat myself up sometimes for that. But then I remember it's okay that it's not always there. It will come when it's meant to.
Hmm.
So I'm a manifesting generator, but can you tell everyone listening a little bit about the five different types?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I love how you described it there, Orla. Like it gives you permission. Human design gives you permission to operate in the way that you already do. You'll know certain aspects of and really resonate with how the energy works. If you go with the energy, it will take you all the way. If you're going against it, you're gonna be tired, you're gonna meet resistance, and it's just so much easier to understand how your body has been designed to operate, and then you get to learn so much more about yourself. So human design, for anybody who hasn't ever heard about it, is basically we know that we have our genetic makeup, that there's genes in our DNA, they're either switched on or switched off, and that will lead to human traits or ways of being. Human design is very similar, but it's actually your energetic makeup. So we'll talk about it throughout it, but like there's going to be different parts of your chart or within your body that are either switched on or switched off, which will lead to a certain human trait, way of being, personality type, energy type, amount of energy that you have, the way that your energy works. And that's what human design basically is. It's an esoteric system that's based on many ancient ways of knowledge and of systems that have been fully integrated and been used in the East mostly. But human design basically it uses lots of that information and then gives you even more information in like quite a focused way so that you can really apply it to yourself. So that's basically what human design is. And within the human design system, there's five types. You've got the pure generator, the manifesting generator, which is what you are. You've got the projector, you've got the manifester, and the reflector. They're the five types, and they vary in popularity. So I'll start with what you are, because you started there. So manifesting generators, they're kind of seen as like a subtype of generator, but I don't know. There's a lot of controversy about whether they're a subtype or if they're actually just a mixture between a generator and a manifestor. But let's just say that they're a subtype of generator because they do have that sacral that is defined. Okay, so manifesting generators, they're not meant to start and finish everything. They are the most energetic of all of the human design types. So they're here to be fire starters. They're here to get things going, but then hand it over to someone else. Like the way that I like to see human design is that if we were all to lean into our human design and actually like go with it, then we would live in a harmonious world of human design. So you'd get things going, Orla. Then the generator would come along, and when it no longer gives you joy, the generator comes along and takes over and puts the work into it. I'm on the sidelines as a projector, guiding the work, making sure that everybody stays on track and is focused. Then you have a reflector who's in the office as well. Let's say if we're in an office job, you have the reflector who's there, and if they're happy out, then you know that you've got a good office environment and that there's no toxicity. And then the manifester is the manager, is the one that's basically making sure that we make the changes that we need, and is the one able to inform us. So if we were all to lean into our gifts of human design, it would be completely harmonious. And that's why I say that manifesting generators should be given a break, because you're here to get things started. You like, if you put your energy into something, you're an energetic catalyst. So whatever you're putting your energy into, let's say it's a project that you're working on as a team, that project will go so much further because you're involved in it. So therefore you have put in so much work already, and then when you remove yourself, that shouldn't be seen as being a bad thing. You've given it more than any of the other types could, so therefore that's a gift in itself. And when it has served its purpose, the energy needs to change. That's what energy does. It changes, it doesn't get destroyed. It just changes. So like, that's why it should never be seen as a bad thing. If you are being really honest with yourself and truthful with yourself, it's a good thing that you have so many different interests. And that's how change happens as well in the world that we need. So sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent.
No, we love
Manifesting
it.
generators, they have so much energy and they've so many interests, and they can be seen as like, and I think there's a lot of theories on TikTok that they're kind of like the ADHD of
Oh,
the human
God.
design world. But I don't know where I sit with that. I don't know at all. But you're just so energetic. You've got so many interests, and your whole purpose, I like to keep it as simple as possible. Your whole purpose is to find what you love, what gives you joy, and to do as much of that as possible. And if you don't do that, because and we'll talk a little bit about it later, but you have basically what is called a defined sacral center. So it's connected to the sacral chakra, but it's a little bit different. It's more in terms of how your body is going to get its life force. So yours is defined. So you should have a consistent supply. Defined definition means if it's defined, you have a consistent supply of energy in that area. And if it's undefined, it's not consistent. So you won't have it all the time, but you have it all the time. And the way that you access that is by leaning into what gives you joy. So if you love something and you do it, your sacral center will be switched on and will supply you with as much life force as you possibly need to keep going with that task. So you can do all-nighters in whatever it is, but if you don't love it, it won't be the same. You will meet resistance, and that would be your body's way of letting you know this isn't for you. But then, sometimes there's things that you just need to do, but you just don't want to be doing too much of them, is the way it is, or find a way of making them more fun.
This just sounds like me so much. And it's so funny because I've had to learn to almost like parent myself. Like, I'm laughing at the ADHD part of it as well, because I do think I've got ADHD sometimes because of how, I don't know if it's my energy or if it's the ADHD or what it is, but anyway, I've had to learn to kind of get myself to do tasks and reframe. It's like, you get to do this, you want to do this, but when I compare like the tasks I don't really want to do to the tasks where, like what you said, I can have this hyper focus on something that I really do enjoy. I could sit there for hours and plan out. I could write pages and pages of stuff, plan out a whole course, like content for months. I like literally could do that if it's something that lights me up, and it's insane. And then there's the other aspect where I beat myself up because I know the standard of work I can produce. I know what I can create. And I'm like, why can't I do that all the time? Because again, it's like it's not lighting me up. I'm not tapped into it. But yeah, sometimes we have to pull up our socks and do things we don't really want to do.
Yeah, or find a new way of doing them. Well, I actually sometimes I love cleaning, right? But sometimes I'm not in the mood. And if that's the case and it still needs to be cleaned, I'll just put on music and dance around the place while I'm doing it. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not a manifesting generator, but I like that way. Like, create more play in the things that you don't like. Try and make them something that maybe you would enjoy. That's another way of doing it as
Love it.
well, I think. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, but it's mainly following your joy for the manifesting generators. And the reason for this is the reason why this will really make a difference to your life is so your electromagnetic frequency or your aura, the way that it works, and it's actually the same for pure generators as well. It is open and enveloping. So what that means is basically when you're doing something that you love, your aura or your basically, yeah, just your aura, it's basically just an electromagnetic frequency that's going to send signals out into the universe that will determine how your experience is or what comes in, how, like, what's being drawn in, what you're putting out is being drawn in. So for you, what's going to happen is it'll be sending out these signals, and what will come in is, and this is what makes you this is what is called your strategy in human design. It's the same for a generator. So whatever is being drawn in, you need to decide, and if this is your strategy is to respond. So something comes in and you respond yes or no to it by really considering what gives you joy. So
Mm,
if it's like someone asking you to go for ice cream and you just love ice cream, but you don't love that someone who's asking you to go for ice cream, you know that it doesn't give you joy to hang out with them, but then you really need to say no. You need to respond with no. And the more you respond honestly with what's coming into your field, you'll notice when you become more aware, you'll notice that things are constantly being drawn into your field. And the more you say yes to what you love and the more you say no to what you don't love, you'll be working with your energy, working with your aura. And that's when big opportunities will start coming up, the opportunities that you really want. You'll be feeling good. Your sacral center will give you all this energy and you'll just really be in flow. And that's what's called working with your strategy. So in human design, they say that if you follow your strategy and your authority, then you're 80% of the way there. And that's probably all I'm going to speak about today, Orla, is your strategy and authority, because
yeah.
after that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But for a generator and a manifesting generator, the strategy is to respond. And what we mean by respond is just whatever is coming into your awareness, into your field, saying yes if you like it and no if you don't, which sounds easier said than done. Because we've got all these other things going on, like, should I do it? Do I need to do it? Do I need money? Will that person hate me? All that. But it's really just trying to do your best to be honest with yourself, and yeah, the rest will, that's how you can basically work with your energy. So that's basically a manifesting generator. And another thing as well, if you want to like identify someone else's human design, I find manifesting generators are the easiest ones to spot out because they're usually seen quite energetic. Like when you're chatting with them, they're just like they can talk fast sometimes, or they can be like a bit bouncy, or like kind of childlike in nature sometimes as well. Or like I'll ask them if they were lucky as a child. Like did your parents ever tell you that you won loads of competitions, stuff like that? Because manifesting generators, when they're really tapped in, and as children you're not as conditioned, so you tend to be more tapped in. When they're really tapped in, they can manifest quicker than any of the rest, from what I've observed anyway. We've all been designed to manifest in a certain way, but from what I've observed, manifesting generators can just they say it happens. Like I've seen that with you, Orla. I've seen it with Kiva. Like, say it, next thing, there it is. And I'm like, what the hell? But you have a defined throat center as well, which is connected to your sacral. So that's what's going on there. You are meant to speak things as well. And that's what gives you the flavor of the manifester, is you are meant to speak things that you want to. And yeah, there'll be magic behind that if it's right for you and you're in your flow. So
It's
that's
a
kind
nice
of
little
a little bit
reminder.
about manifesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep saying it. Yeah.
Mm.
Speaking your truth. Yeah.
I'm like,
So
what
that's
will
a
I say on the podcast
manifester.
now?
Sorry. Yeah. Speak something that you want, something that you really, you want. That's from your heart as well.
Like apartment overlooking the sea. I'm like 1 million euros, husband.
Yeah.
No, when it's
You
joking.
put it out there. Let's see what
See
happens.
what
Or
happens.
better. Always finish it with or something better.
Or something better. Okay,
Because
amazing.
you never know what might happen. Yeah, then there's something you might have not even considered yet. So that's basically a manifesting generator in like quite a big nutshell. So then we'll move on to what is quite similar to them, the generators. So the difference between the generators and manifesting generators is in the energy centers. So the generators won't have their sacral directly connected to their throat center. And that's what makes them that little bit different. But also they won't have as many different interests as a manifesting generator. They might have differing interests, but it won't be as consistent as the way the manifesting generator shows up. They're also meant to do things in a step-by-step fashion, whereas you guys are able to go from A to H, and you just know how to do that. Like you the zigzagged approach. Again, it's so energetic. So it's like I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Whereas the generators aren't meant to do it that way. They're meant to find a step-by-step approach that works for them. So in human design, it's seen as, so 70% of the world are generators and then the rest aren't. And generators are seen as being the type that have the energy. Then you have projectors that are the type that guide the energy. They don't have it, but they guide it.
Mm.
Then you have manifestors that are the type that change the energy because they're meant to change and initiate. And then you have the reflectors will reflect the energy. So we all have such a divine purpose that we are meant to contribute to each other and to society and the world and all that. So yeah, so generators have the energy, so they're still very energetic, and they work in the same way as you guys as well. They're meant to follow their joy, what they love doing. They're meant to do as much as they possibly can, and that way they will have access to that life force. And again, their aura operates the same way. Whatever comes in, they have the same strategy. They need to respond with yes to what they love and no to what they don't love. So they are quite similar to manifesting generators, but just not as much. Like they have a step-by-step approach and they won't have as many different interests, and then the energy centers is where they differ as well. So yeah, that's kind of a nutshell of the generators. So you guys can just do so much. You have so much energy to do it. Like I remember going for a hike with, I'm not a generator. I went for a hike with a generator friend and she loves mountains and she loves hiking as well. And I nearly died, and I would have been very fit. Like physically I'm quite fit, but I don't have that endurance or that can't go for that long. Like I just can't. And she could have went for another probably 10 hours. Like I really got to see the difference between human design then, because I was so fit, I was so able, but I did not have the life force energy to keep me going. So it was quite interesting. So yeah, that will bring me on to projectors. So projectors are the next type. I'm a projector. They make up about 16 to 20% of the world, around 16%, 16, 17% of the world. And the projectors are basically, they're the first of the non-energetic beings that I'm going to talk about. So yeah, the generators and the manifesting generators are the energetic type, and then the projectors are the first of the non-energetic type. And what that means is your sacral center is basically what determines if you're energetic or non-energetic, because it will determine your consistency of life force. And projectors don't have a consistent supply of life force, so therefore they cannot work as much or put in as much energy into something as an energetic being. So that's the first thing. And that was really what drew me to human design. Orla, I was trying to, as I spoke about at the beginning of the podcast, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do as a living, and like I was working shift at the time, so that was like over 12 hours of work at a time. And like at night times, it was absolutely like draining. Every little drip of life force was just gone. So I knew I didn't want to do that, and but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was writing down what I did know. And one of the things that I wrote down, and was before I even knew about human design, was I feel like I only want to work 3 to 4 hours a day. That's what I feel like I have in me. That is
Love it.
really good, like productive work. And then I found out about human design maybe a year later. Found out I was a projector. So projectors really only have 3 to 4 hours of creative work in them a day. And really, they're not meant to be working that much. Their gifts lie in how much they understand people. So they are really the guy, or not just people, they understand systems as well. Sometimes they might not put the work into people, but usually it is people because of the way that they operate. But yeah, they're here to really understand other people and then systems as well, and to guide that. They will be brilliant guides. They'll see things that people don't see because they're about to run out of energy at any given moment. They're very efficient with their time, and they can really spot inefficiencies a mile away. Like I remember going through a menu in Bali, and I was like, this is the most badly structured menu I've ever seen. And like, I know nothing about food. I don't know about making menus, but I knew it was wasting my time by looking at it. So they can spot inefficiencies a mile away, which is a great gift for change in guiding a system. But yeah, the reason why projectors are seen as being very good with people. So projectors often do end up working with people in maybe a therapeutic sense or something along those lines, because they do really on a deep level understand people. And the reason for that is their aura, which I spoke about with generators, but their aura doesn't actually draw things in. What happens is when they're one-to-one, so right now, even though we're virtual, Orla, there'll be a certain amount of my energy, and don't worry, there's no way I can affect you or take anything from you. My sister always laughs, and because I'd be like, I'm more energetic because I'm around her, and she's like, stop taking my energy. But that's not how it works. What happens is my aura will actually plug into your G center, which is like your heart center. Well, it's not called the heart center, but I like to see it as being similar to the heart. So on a deep energetic level, I will be able to, and a lot of it's unconscious, I won't be aware of it, but I will actually be able to understand what you're going through or what you're experiencing, and be able to, if you invite me, I'll be able to give good information about what I think you'll need to do. So I spoke about the generator, the way that their strategy is to respond to what comes into their life. The projector's strategy is to wait for the invitation. And that one is really confusing for projectors. And to be honest, I'm still trying to navigate that myself. It's really important. The way that I find easiest to describe it is, it's really important to honestly just do not go around willy-nilly giving advice. You will have a certain amount in your body that will want to do that, but just do not do it, because you will deplete yourself of your life force. If you give advice and somebody doesn't receive it well, you will be so bitter. Like I know it from my own experience, because that's what's happening there. Is that's proper good energy that has just fallen on deaf ears, and you've just wasted your own energy. You've made the choice there, even if it is unconscious, but you've made the choice to waste your own energy. So don't give advice. So wait for the invitation, and then when people do invite you and you say yes, if it's right for you, you would just feel amazing. You'll feel so successful. So that's kind of like what a projector are. They're the guides. They don't have that much energy. They're very efficient. They're here to master systems. And they really do need to wait for the invitation. And like, you can have ways of doing that. Like, you can ask someone if you can really see what they're struggling with, and you do have advice to give them. And like, it's not just because you're projecting, like you actually know that you have got good advice to give this person. You can ask them, hey, would it be okay if I suggested something? And if they say yes, that's still an invitation. So that's kind of a projector in a nutshell. And they are quite different.
Really good advice for like all types anyway. Like I think a lot of people, like a one-liner that I've recently come across in the last few months is like, do you want to be heard, or do you want some advice? Like, do you want me to just listen to you, or do you want me to give some advice? Because I think a lot of people, regardless if you're a projector, manifesting generator, reflector, we like to project, we like to give people our advice, we like to tell them what to do. And I think it's such a good like even having that strategy as like does this person actually want me to give advice, tell them what to do? Because sometimes that's not what a person needs on the opposite end. So yeah, I just thought that would be a really good thing to say for everybody listening, and with like your
Yeah.
own boundaries as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there is crossover with the types. Like, I still follow my heart. I still follow what gives me joy, even though it's not my strategy. I'm still going to do that. But I also know that I really need to wait for invitations. Like, that's something that, and maybe that's because I will have that urge where I'm not supposed to. And maybe you'll have the urge to go and literally try loads of stuff. And you're like, the way that you can focus better is by following your heart. So maybe that's why it's your strategy, because you have this other tendency to go against yourself, and that's why you can bring it back into focus. Possibly, I don't know. That's just the theory I literally made up there. But yeah, so projectors they really do need to be mindful of how they use their energy, and sleep is really important for a projector. So that's kind of how I can kind of recognize a projector if they kind of tend to have a bit of a sleepy demeanor. They're kind of like slots. Like, I can just tell, like, some of them talk quite slowly. I know I'm not talking slowly, but again, I'm plugged into you, so
Okay.
I'm actually picking up a bit of your manifesting generator energy. That would be another thing. So because I don't have a defined sacral center, I'm going to amplify your energy in the moment. So I will seem more energetic, whereas I live with a projector. And the two of us are just like, by 8 p.m. in the evening, because we're both like, we like to go to bed early and we get up early. So by 8 p.m. in the evening, we're not really even talking that much, and we're kind of like shuffling around the place. And then eventually we just go to bed. It's quite funny. But so that's the projector. They really need to value their sleep and naps as well. Naps are very important for projectors if they want to get something done. So that's a projector in a nutshell, and really need to wait for the invitation. Then we'll move on to manifestors. So manifestors are quite rare. They make up it's usually about 7 to 9% of the population, so less than 10%. And they are really here to initiate, to create the change. Now, we think that we're all here to do that, but we're actually not. We're meant to follow. Anyway, they are really here to create change. They are the initiators. They have defined throat centers, and the way that they differ is they don't have the defined sacral center. So they are non-energetic as well, but they're not quite as sleepy as projectors. But they're really here to speak their truths. Anything that they see that needs doing, and if it is their truth and they're not just acting out of ego, they need to speak it. They need to inform of the change that's needed. They're not always the change makers, but they're definitely the ones that need to speak, and they'll be very inspiring. They're the leaders of the human design system as well in certain ways. But their strategy, so if mine is to wait for an invitation and yours is to respond, theirs is to initiate, or no, to inform. That's what theirs is. And that will in turn initiate change. But it might not be them that's doing it. They might start it off, but again, they might not finish it. That might not be the best way for them to do it, but they will really see things like injustices or silly ways that systems are operating, and that they just need to change it. Or they might, like, really, a lot of them are here to work with people. Like, one of my friends is a manifestor, and like, I'm just so glad she's a manifestor, because the change that she sees that's needed that other people might not be able to see, she's really able to inform it and bring it into the space, and then it's just going to happen. Someone's going to either take on the responsibility on her behalf or help her out, because she is a non-energetic being, or manifestors in general, they're non-energetic beings, so they're not going to have all the energy to create all this change. So it will take a team, and that's why they're seen as like maybe the managers or the leaders of the group that's working as a team. And yeah, that's basically what they do. They are the change makers. So their aura, the way that their aura operates, and this is why it can be kind of hard for manifestors as children, and that's why it would be amazing if, like, we had this information and parents had this information, so that you could know how to, just give them a break or give them a little bit of advice and let them know that this might be why this is happening, especially for manifestors, because their aura is repelling. And the reason for that is because they're not meant to be influenced by the outside world. They really need to bring the change in and say what they see, and not be influenced by the outside world. But as a repelling aura, as a child, you might not have as many friends, or you might trigger people as well. People might just get like energetically pissed off with you. So that's hard for a manifestor child, but really it's there. Your aura is there to help you live your purpose. That's why it operates in the way that it does. It's to help you to really embody who you are. So yeah, it'll help them when it comes to not being influenced by the outside world, but it can hurt children if they're being rejected as a result of it. So that's why I think it'd be really helpful for parents to know this. But I think slowly but surely that is happening. Parents are becoming more aware, and they're able to learn. Like, I've actually done readings for people's kids, not actually them, for their children.
Aww, that's so nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
There's so many memes and stuff like that. It's like the minute the baby's born, it's like, what's her moon chart? What's her sun? So what's her rising? I'm gonna be looking up all these things for my babies.
Yeah, it's so good though. Like, I love it. And it really is spreading. Or maybe it's because I'm more aware, but it is spreading. Like,
I think so.
I went on a date the other day. I know I'm sidetracking, but I went on a date the other day. And like what I've realized, because I'm so strong in this energy now, people tell me their birth time without me even having to ask.
What?
This was a lad in Ireland from like the country. And he just managed it, because I told him I thought he looked like a Scorpio because his birthday is soon. And I was like, you kind of look like a Scorpio. And he was like, no, I'm Libra. And then he started to just like rhyme off a few things, and he gave me like his full birth information. And then I was able to look everything up.
Then she got the detective cap out. Oh my God, I'm obsessed. I saw a meme the other day, and it was like how women just turn into full CSI investigation. It's like the minute we get the information, we're on it, and we're I can't remember, she said something really funny about solving the case crime, like something. But I was in stitches. I was like, we are all class A detectives. We are on the fucking ball when we need to be, and we find out everything we need to know.
Yeah. So true. It's so true. We are, but we're really good at it as well.
I know. We're amazing.
Yeah.
I can't believe an Irish guy, because I went on a date with an Irish guy here, and it was like the opposite for that. It was like nothing. Our two worlds were completely separate, and it was just, it kind of like turned me off Irish guys in general. I was like, okay, they're still not able to, like, they're not up to speed with my kind of inside world, but to make me kind of self-conscious, as if I was the fucking weirdo. But like what you're saying, like, we can have people in our worlds that like we just bounce off each other and we talk about all this kind of stuff, and even lads are talking about it, which is so good to see. But yeah, it was really fun. But I was like,
it's spread. It's definitely spreading, but it's not like the majority by any stretch.
No. But we'll get to a good few people on this podcast. The last one, I think. Did you mention reflectors?
Not yet. Yeah. So I'll move on to reflectors now. So they're like the rare Pokemon of the human design chart. So they are of the human design world. They make up 1 to maybe 2. It might be getting a little bit bigger, but not even. I'd say it's less than 2% of the population are reflectors. And reflectors are like the cosmic mirrors of the human design system. They are really here, like they operate so differently. Like you could say you've got 70% which are generators and 30% which are non-energetic, but then you could also go a step further and say that 99% of the world operate completely differently to the reflectors. Like, my heart goes out to them. They really have such a big purpose in the world, because they are here to really embody their differences, which will inspire and help create change in a very peaceful way. But it's hard for them, because if they don't know about their human design, they really are so different. So their strategy is to wait a lunar cycle. Like, that's hard.
That's wild.
I'm laughing because I'm like, oh my God, like, it's so, in order to make any sort of a decision or to make any sort of change in their life, they need a full moon cycle. So like a full 28 days. They need to feel it out. At one stage, they're going to show up as a manifestor. They're going to show up as a manifesting generator, as a projector. They're going to show up as all the types, feel all of that out. And then by the end of it, right, now what do I think?
Oh my gosh,
Like
I simply could not.
It's just so different. It's so varied. And then, like, if they haven't come to a decision by then, they actually might need another one. Sometimes they need 2 lunar cycles. So trying to wait for a reflector to make a decision can be like a task in itself. But they really are here to operate so differently. They're here to be so wise when it comes to how human beings actually operate, what we're doing wrong and what we're doing right, because they have no energy centers that are defined. So they will feel and amplify all of the centers. Now, they won't take on everything that everybody has. Their aura will actually protect them from that, but they will feel little bits of it. Like I think so their aura is sampling. That's the way that their aura is. It's reflective and sampling. So about 1 to 2% of the person that they're interacting with or the environment that they're interacting with, they will actually take into their bodies and experience and be able to reflect back. So if that's why reflectors are really here to let us know, their purpose are to let us know how we're doing as a human race. So if a reflector is really, really suffering and really struggling, the environment that they're mostly immersed in is toxic, basically.
Okay.
And it will let us know that it's not doing well. But if they're thriving, then that environment is doing great. And really, like, it's the responsibility of the reflector and other people to be like, right, let's pick out bits that are working there and let's try and recreate that somewhere else. So they really do reflect to us how we're doing. But for them, that can be challenging. But when they're aware of it, it can be better. So they do need alone time as well. It would be good for them to be able to take their energy away from being plugged in, because they will always have a certain amount that's going left, right, and center. So it is important for them to be alone as well. But my heart goes out to reflectors, because they do have such a different task. And like, you know, the way that you described earlier on, that sometimes people will tell you that in business you need to pick a niche. And that was hard for you because that's not how you operate. Well, reflectors, I don't know how much information is out there for them on how they actually operate. So human design for them really is a gift to be able to lean into how they operate, because they are so different from the rest of the types. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it's such a gift because they really tell us how the environment is doing. And when I was doing my readings, Orla, I've done readings for 4 reflectors. Like, the fact that I've actually met 4 reflectors when only 1% of the world are reflectors is mad. So I saw that as a good sign that what I was doing was good, because I was actually managing to attract so many of them.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Oh my God.
So if you do know a reflector, give them a break.
I feel like I want to know everyone's now. I'm going to go ask all my friends. I'm like, okay, go calculate your birth chart, go get this. Actually, where do you recommend people can look this up for themselves?
Yeah, so I would say Jovian Archive, because the guy that channeled this information originally, that's where he put everything. And he has a whole book on it as well. If you're very interested, if you're like me, then you'll probably buy the book, but you don't need to. He will give you all of the starters. So I've given you a little bit of a sample of what the types are and how your strategy works, but it goes so much deeper than that. And if you go to Jovian Archive, you can start. He has like a whole format of lots of free information, and then after that, when you've learned a little bit more and you want to know more, you'll get your chart there as well. You can just plug in these things into YouTube and there'll be lots of videos on them, so you can learn more again that way. You can also go for a reading with someone, which will make everything very condensed and focused towards you. I do some, but not that many, but I also have people that I can recommend. So if you do want more information about human design, reach out to me and I'll point you in the right direction.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for all that information. Honestly, I hope everyone listening gets so much value from this, because I've actually had a few people asking me. They've said in between, I heard you mentioned about this, so I went and looked it up myself. Like, what does this mean? I'm like, I've got the gal just for you. You just wait for the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Orla.
But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your knowledge. If people want to connect with you and learn more about what you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, so at the moment, Instagram is what I work through most of all. I have website that has been coming for months, but it just still doesn't feel right to launch it yet. So I don't have one of those yet. At some stage I will have one, but Instagram is what I work through mostly at the moment. So you'll probably put that in the show notes, will you?
I will. I'll put your handle in the show notes. Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Go give Alysh some love. If you found this episode helpful, pass it on to a fellow spiritual girly who wants to hear all about it as well. And yeah, we will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Great. Thanks so much, Orla.